we're going to do today is the photograph that you've chosen. That's this one. Rather nice morning scene here at the Powder. With everything set out here, we've got our pans of watercolour. Now these watercolours are actually liquid ones. We squeeze them in from a tube and then they go dry afterwards. They're exactly the same as the little squares you see in the tins.
Oh, yeah.
So the beauty of these is all you have to do is just top them up occasionally and you have the colours that you want whenever you want. Got a jar of water and my set of brushes. Now it's like fishermen. You only need a couple of brushes. Fishermen have hundreds of floats and they only use their favourites. We'll only need a few brushes for the job. In fact, for this painting, we'll probably get away with a very fine one. We'll use a rigger in this case. It's called a rigger because it's long, thin hair. You can paint very long, thin lines. And it used to paint the rigging in sailing ships, and the way they do it is they'd have wet paint in the background, and they would paint with oil paint, the liquid paint on with a thin brush like this, and the paint underneath would close it and make an even thinner line. We're going to need a clay shaper, this little one here, for doing some resist work, because we're going to put some masking fluid on for these little light twigs. And we'll need a nice wash brush, that's this one. I've got a couple of these. One for you, one for me. And we may need a little round brush as well, but you'll be surprised how much of a painting we can do with this. When you see how we can make it into a blade like that. This is doing the big washes and dropping in, but also we can use it as a blade as well. We may use a bit of sponge at the end for some of this texturing as well, we'll see. But first, obviously we have to start with the pencil. So what we're going to do first is just draw out the basic composition very lightly. We've already made the shape of the mask that we've got later, the map we've got later, so that's we've already thought ahead on this. Now watercolour is like a battle. You have to plan the whole thing ahead. Although it's very much controlled accent and the feel of watercolour, we have to work from lights to darks. So in this case we're going to work from all our light colours here down to our darker colours at the end. And because we're not going to use white paint, we want to leave white paper in places, then we'll put masking fluid where some of the little lights are as well. So that's our plan of action. Draw it out, put the masking fluid on, put the masking fluid dry, and then we'll do all these lovely background washes, wet into wet, get the atmosphere from light to dark, no white paint. You want pink, you use red thinner. You want light blue, you use the blue thinner, and so on. And when that's dry, then we gradually, as it's damp, we work into it. When it's dry, we do the final pass. So the first thing is to start to draw little lines in the background here for these birch trees. And that gives you that nice blue masking fluid to be rubbed off later to give the white lines. So we're going to now do a wash. And it's going to be a variegated wash. A graduated wash is from one colour to another. A variegated is changing the colours as we go through. And I'm going to bring the water right through to here because I actually want, as the water dries, to get this misty effect of one colour coming into another for here. And we do that by doing wet into wet and wet next to wet. Wet next to wet will join together, wet into wet will spread out. And this is where experience will tell, because you have to do a good few watercolours to actually know how wet something is or what you can and can't do. But we'll get an idea here. What I'm going to do is not mix the wash straight away. I'm actually going to put water all over this bit and make sure that the masking fluid is dry. Before you do that, it's vital the masking fluid is dry. I'm going to put water all over this bit, down to halfway in this case, and we'll do the other in reverse, so it's like a mirror. So water all over that bit there. Now, these paints need dampening down. They're already liquids, but they've dried up a bit.
So we just need
a little bit of water in each. We've got 4 blues here. We've got cobalt, ultramarine, cerulean and Prussian. This is our coolest, this is our warmest, and that's our middle one. And the Prussian actually is quite cool, but it's very, very dark. We're going to use a mixture of dropping these colours together and actually mixing them on the paper, not mixing them in the palette as much, because we want this misty effect. So let's look at the lightest colours here. The lightest colour is this creamy colour, isn't it? Then it comes down into the pink. So we're just going to take some of this cobalt violet here for the moment. And I've never painted this in watercolour before, so it's quite fun for me as well. And I'm going to paint now. You notice I'm painting the colour quite heavily because watercolour does dry lighter than when you paint it on. So I'm going to paint that right the way through. I'm going to dry my brush off, take it on the floor, and then I can suck it up, you see, if I want. So you can take things out as well as put them in. I'm going to take a little bit now of some aureolin yellow, which is this one, which is a lovely transparent yellow. It's actually a lighter yellow than that one is. And we'll see what happens when I drop that in. You see, we just drop those colours together, very, very softly. So we've got our pinks there now. It seems very strong to you at the moment, but it won't be when it dries. Now I'm going to go to my cerulean blue and just make a thin wash in there ready. We could mix it in the palette here, but we don't really need to. And I'm going to drop that in all over here. And I'm actually going to bring it right down and through here into these areas where I see the mist coming down. Because we can see our lines underneath, you see. We can see the pencil line still, don't worry. That blue comes up there, and we'll just let it blend in with these colours here, a bit darker. See the misty effect we're getting now? As one colour blends, just tickling it in, look, as one colour blends into another to get these effects of these. Now, this blue here is a little bit stronger, so I'm going to go down to some of the cobalt and just drop in this much warmer cobalt, and that has the effect of making this much lighter, do you see?
Yes, it makes a contrast.
It's the contrast of warm next to cool and light next to dark and so on. And even more so, a little bit of the ultramarine into here, and look how much that does. And that's it, the sky is virtually done. We don't mess about with watercolour, just leave it alone. If we wanted a really stormy day, we could tilt that and make these things all... Right, now I'm going to come down through here, and you notice we've got some light yellows and colours here, so I'm going to take that aureolin yellow again. Just be careful, because one's going to spread into another, isn't it? And we bring this aureolin yellow down through here, aureolin yellow through here, right through here where these light bits are, because you can't paint them in afterwards. In watercolour you've got to do it at the time. And I'm deliberately letting this sky blend into this area, just dabbling it on to get the effects of these wet into wet atmospheric backgrounds. And this gives us this very soft wet day already, doesn't it? A little bit warmer here, so I'm going to come back and add some of that warmer brown, just a little bit of that warmer yellow into here, because it's closer to us as well. And we're getting rather a lot of water here, so some of this one to just suck some of it out in places. Just delicately take some of this away. Right, we'll let that dry now because there's ever so much water there. Here for the grass, and again we can use our aureolin yellow. It's a lovely colour, one of the most loveliest of yellows, and a little touch of brown to that, and a little touch of the blue to give us a warm green, and that will give us a warm bluey through to here. We go over our line that we've already masked, doesn't matter about that. We come right through there. And now these warmer bits here, just touch into those, look, to get the effect of the weed. So simple, yeah? Slightly warmer there. And these little bits as well, we'll have some of that into here. Now we're going to go a bit greener. I'm going to take a little bit of my Viridian, and put it with the green, and have a little stronger green in places here in the foreground, because it's much stronger here than in the background. So down here as well, look, it's very strong. We'll actually add some blue into that sienna there to make it quite dark. And there's the difference we're getting.
And you've got that contrast, haven't you?
Of the stronger colours here and the lighter, bluer in the background. So we'll just prepare your the board here, and we'll start with the pink. Again, that'll be plenty there. And just paint that on in the sky where we did it before.
Getting the feel for how to use the brush.
Yes, the medium and the brush.
How to use the brush.
And what the medium will do, how wet it has to be.
How wet it has to be.
How far it will spread.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, we're almost done there. We've got the basic wet into wets in.
Yeah.
We've got our atmosphere, our lights and darks. We can let that dry now.
Yeah.
And we'll come back afterwards, having had some nice French lunch, and we'll paint in the details, the darker, harder lines, the wet on top of the dry afterwards. Now we're finishing off with the last details of wet onto dry. Did you enjoy that?
I enjoyed it very much.
It's your first ever watercolour, and you're pleased with that, aren't you?
Very pleased
Isn't
with that.
Isn't it a lovely little piece of work?
Thank you.
Absolutely smashing. Well done. Yeah.
That was great.
We've finished the little painting, and let's see what it looks like with a mount on it. They always look better with a mount. So, there we go. Just to finish him off.